I want to show you a photograph. It's not particularly remarkable at first glance. In fact, you might miss the most important thing in it entirely if I don't point it out. But this photograph changed the way I see everything. And I believe if you really look at it, if you really understand what you're seeing, it will change the way you see everything too. In 1990, the Voyager 1 spacecraft was speeding away from the Sun at about 17 kilometers per second. It had completed its primary mission years earlier, flying past Jupiter and Saturn, sending back extraordinary images of those giant worlds and their moons. It was heading toward the outer edges of the solar system and beyond, carrying with it a golden record, a message from Earth to any extraterrestrial intelligence that might one day find it drifting through the cosmos. Voyager 1 was about 6 billion kilometers from home. That's roughly 40 times farther from the Sun than Earth is. From that distance, from that vantage point at the edge of our solar system, I asked the spacecraft team to turn the camera around, to look back, to take one last photograph of home. The engineers were reluctant. From that distance, Earth would appear as nothing more than a tiny point of light, less than 1 pixel. The image would have no scientific value, and there was a risk pointing the camera toward the Sun could damage the instruments. But I persisted, and finally they agreed. On February 14th, 1990, Voyager 1 turned its camera back toward the inner solar system and took 60 frames, a mosaic of the Sun and planets. And there, in one of those frames, suspended in a beam of scattered sunlight, was a pale blue dot. Earth. That's us. That's home. That's everyone you know, everyone you love, everyone you've ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives on that mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. When I first saw that image, when I really looked at it and understood what I was seeing, something shifted in me. A perspective I'd been working toward intellectually for years suddenly became visceral, emotional, undeniable. We are so small, our world is so fragile, our place in the universe is so humble. Let me tell you what I see when I look at that photograph, and what I hope you'll see too. First, the scale. 6 billion kilometers sounds like an enormous distance, and it is by human standards. If you could somehow drive to Voyager 1's position at highway speeds, it would take you more than 6,000 years to get there. Light itself, traveling at 300,000 kilometers per second, takes more than 5.5 hours to cover that distance. But here's what's remarkable. 6 billion kilometers is nothing on a cosmic scale. It's barely the edge of our own solar system. The nearest star beyond our sun, Proxima Centauri, is about 40 trillion kilometers away. To reach that distance in a photograph, to see our sun as other civilizations might see it from their worlds, you'd need to go 7,000 times farther than Voyager 1 traveled. And from that distance, you wouldn't see Earth at all, not even a pixel. Our entire world would be completely invisible, lost in the glare of the sun. The Milky Way galaxy, our cosmic home, is about 100,000 light years across. That's about 1 quintillion kilometers, 1,000,000 billion kilometers. From the other side of our own galaxy, forget seeing Earth. You couldn't even distinguish our sun from billions of other stars. Our entire solar system would be invisible. And the Milky Way is just one galaxy among hundreds of billions, perhaps trillions, in the observable universe. So when I look at that pale blue dot, I see scale. I see how incredibly tiny our world is in the cosmic context. How absolutely insignificant our planet appears when viewed from even a modest distance. We're a single pixel in a portrait of the solar system taken from the equivalent of cosmic arm's length, and already we're almost invisible. But I see something else too. I see home. our only home. Look again at that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there on a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. Think about that for a moment. Every battle ever fought, every empire ever built, every discovery ever made, every work of art ever created, every thought ever conceived, all of it happened on that tiny point of light. The pyramids of Giza, the Roman Empire, the Renaissance, the Industrial Revolution, the moon landing, everything confined to that barely visible pixel. The Earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena, and yet it's the only stage we have. There is nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. Visit, yes. Settle, not yet. Like it or not, for the moment, the Earth is where we make our stand. When I look at that photograph, I think about history, human history, the countless generations who lived and died, never knowing how small their world really was, never seeing it from this perspective, never understanding the cosmic context of their existence. For most of human history, we thought Earth was everything, not just our home, but the entirety of the universe, the heavens, the sun, the moon, the stars. They were lights in the sky, decorations on the dome of heaven, placed there perhaps for our benefit. Earth was the center, the foundation, the most important place in existence. Then we learned Earth was a sphere, not flat. That was humbling. The world was larger than we thought, more complex, with people living on the other side we'd never imagined. Then we learned Earth orbited the sun, not the other way around. Another demotion. We weren't the center of the cosmos. We were just another planet, one world among several circling an ordinary star. Then we learned our sun was one star among hundreds of billions in a galaxy, and our galaxy was one among hundreds of billions in the universe. Each demotion made us smaller, less central, less special. But somehow I think many people still didn't really feel it. They intellectually understood we were on a planet in space, but they didn't feel the smallness, the fragility, the cosmic insignificance of our world. The pale blue dot changed that, at least for me, and I hope for others who really look at it. Because seeing Earth from that distance, seeing it reduced to a pixel, a mote of dust barely visible against the vastness of space that makes it real, makes it visceral, makes it impossible to deny. We're tiny, cosmically insignificant, a brief experiment in organized complexity on a small rock, orbiting an ordinary star in an ordinary galaxy in an incomprehensibly vast universe. And when I really absorb that, when I let that perspective sink in, something interesting happens. The things that seemed so important, the things humans fight over, argue about, die for, they start to look different. Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors so that in glory and triumph they could become the momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of this pixel on the scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner. How frequent their misunderstandings, how eager they are to kill one another, how fervent their hatreds. From this distant vantage point, our conflicts seem not just small but absurd. We draw borders on that dot and fight wars over them. We create nations and ideologies and religions and then slaughter each other to prove ours is superior. We accumulate wealth and power as if they matter beyond our tiny world, as if anyone in the cosmos cares who was rich and who was poor on the pale blue dot. Our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe are challenged by this point of pale light. Look at it, really look at it. How can anyone see that image and think their nation, their religion, their ideology is the center of everything? How can anyone see how small we are and still believe the universe revolves around our particular tribe, our particular belief system, our particular corner of a pixel? The pale blue dot is a lesson in humility, a lesson in perspective, a reminder that we are not the center of anything, that our world is a lonely speck in a great enveloping cosmic dark. But here's what's remarkable. Here's what keeps this from being depressing. Even though we're tiny, even though we're insignificant from a cosmic perspective, even though the universe at large doesn't care about us or know we exist, we care, we exist, we're conscious. We can look at that photograph and understand what we're seeing. We can feel awe, wonder, humility, connection. That matters, not to the universe, but to us. And since we're the ones experiencing existence, since we're the ones who get to decide what's meaningful and beautiful and worth preserving, our caring matters absolutely. When I look at that pale blue dot, I see fragility, I see vulnerability. Our planet is exposed to the cosmos. No protective shell, no cosmic parent watching over us. Nothing between us and the vast, indifferent universe except a thin layer of atmosphere and the laws of physics. We're vulnerable to asteroids. A rock a few kilometers across, striking at cosmic speeds, could devastate our civilization. It's happened before. 66 million years ago, an asteroid about 10 kilometers wide slammed into Earth and caused the extinction of the dinosaurs and most other species alive at the time. It could happen again, not today, probably not in our lifetimes, but eventually. It's not a question of if, but when. We're vulnerable to our own sun. In about 5 billion years, the sun will expand into a red giant and likely engulf Earth entirely. Long before that, within 1 billion years or so, the sun's increasing luminosity will boil away our oceans and make the planet uninhabitable. Our time here is limited by cosmic factors completely beyond our control, and we're vulnerable to ourselves. We possess the ability to destroy our own civilization through nuclear war, environmental catastrophe, engineered pandemics, artificial intelligence gone wrong. We're clever enough to create extraordinarily dangerous technologies, but perhaps not yet wise enough to handle them responsibly. The pale blue dot has no backup, no spare. If we destroy it, if we render it uninhabitable through our own foolishness or bad luck, there's nowhere else to go, not yet. Maybe someday we'll spread to other worlds, become a multi-planet species, give ourselves a margin of safety. But for now, for this moment, we're confined to this tiny world. All our eggs in one fragile basket suspended in a sunbeam. That makes the pale blue dot precious beyond measure. Not because the universe thinks it's special, it doesn't, but because it's special to us. It's our home, the only world known to harbor life, the only world in the cosmos where, as far as we can tell, matter has organized itself into conscious beings who can contemplate their own existence. And that brings me to what I think is the most important lesson of the pale blue dot: responsibility. If we're alone on this world, if there's no cosmic cavalry coming to rescue us, if we're the only intelligent beings in this region of space, certainly the only ones on Earth, then we're responsible for preserving what we have. We're responsible for taking care of this world. We're responsible for taking care of each other. It underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known. Think about how we treat this planet. We dump pollution into the air and water. We clear-cut forests. We drive species to extinction at rates not seen since the age of dinosaurs ended. We alter the climate through greenhouse gas emissions. We act in so many ways as if we have another planet to go to when this one is used up. But we don't. Look at that photograph. That's it. That's all we have. Every breath of air you've ever taken came from that dot. Every drop of water you've ever drunk came from that dot. Every meal you've ever eaten, every person you've ever loved, every moment of beauty you've ever experienced, all of it confined to that barely visible speck of light. We're trashing the only home we have. And for what? For short-term profit? For the convenience of our generation at the expense of future generations? For the wealth of a tiny fraction of humanity? The pale blue dot should make us reconsider our priorities, should make us ask whether the things we're doing to our planet are worth it, whether accumulating wealth while destroying ecosystems makes sense when you understand there's nowhere else to go, whether fighting wars over resources and territories and ideologies makes sense when you see how small our world is, how much we're all in this together, all inhabitants of the same fragile dot. And it should change how we treat each other. When you see Earth from space, you don't see borders. You don't see nations or races or religions. You see one world, a single unified sphere of rock and water and air suspended in emptiness. The divisions we create, the categories we use to separate ourselves into us and them, they're not written into the fabric of reality. They're human inventions, useful sometimes perhaps, but not fundamental, not more real than the underlying unity of being inhabitants of the same small world. Every person you've ever met, every person you'll ever meet, they're from your hometown. All 7 billion of us live in the same neighborhood. We're all standing on the same tiny rock. When you really absorb that, when you look at that pale blue dot and understand that we're all there together, it becomes harder to hate, harder to dehumanize, harder to see others as fundamentally different from yourself. We're all in this together, whether we like it or not. We all share the same small world, the same thin atmosphere, the same water cycling through the same systems. What happens in one part of the pale blue dot affects other parts. Pollution doesn't respect borders. Climate change doesn't stop at national boundaries. Nuclear fallout circles the globe. We're connected unavoidably, physically, actually connected by being inhabitants of the same small planet. And the pale blue dot demands that we think bigger than our immediate tribe, our nation, our generation. It demands we think about the whole planet, about all of humanity, about the long-term future, because there is no elsewhere, there is no away, there is only here, only us, only this one precious, fragile world. And it's not just about avoiding catastrophe, it's about what we could be, what we could become. The pale blue dot shows us we're small, yes, but it also shows us we're capable of something extraordinary. We're capable of building machines that can travel billions of kilometers through space. We're capable of turning those machines around and photographing our own world from the edge of the solar system. We're capable of understanding our place in the cosmos, of seeing ourselves from the outside, of grasping our own insignificance and still finding meaning and purpose and beauty. That's remarkable, unique as far as we know. On this pale blue dot, matter has become conscious. The universe has developed the ability to look at itself, to study itself, to understand itself. Through us, through human beings with our science and our art and our philosophy, the cosmos is beginning to know its own story, to trace its own history from the Big Bang to the present moment. We are, in a very real sense, the universe's way of knowing itself. And that gives us value, meaning, purpose, not because the universe cares, it doesn't, but because we care. Because consciousness and understanding and beauty and love, these things matter to conscious beings. And on this pale blue dot, for now, we're the conscious beings. That brings responsibility. If we're the only ones who can appreciate beauty, we should create more of it. If we're the only ones who can understand the cosmos, we should work to understand it better. If we're the only ones who can reduce suffering and increase flourishing, we should do that. Not because anyone in the universe is watching or judging, but because we are part of the universe and what we do matters to us. And that's enough. That has to be enough. The pale blue dot makes clear we're not the center of the universe. We're not cosmically important. Billions of years before we existed, the universe got along fine without us. Billions of years after we're gone, it will continue without us. We don't matter in that sense, but we matter in another sense. We matter to each other. We matter to the other species we share this planet with. We matter to ourselves. And perhaps, if we're wise and fortunate, we might matter to the future, to the generations who will come after us if we don't destroy ourselves first. They'll look back at us and judge whether we were worthy stewards of the pale blue dot, whether we preserved it for them or squandered it for ourselves. I think about that photograph often, the pale blue dot. I think about what it means, what it reveals about us and our place in the cosmos. And every time I look at it, I feel the same things. Humility at how small we are, wonder that we exist at all, gratitude to be alive on this particular world at this particular moment in cosmic history, and responsibility to take care of this precious, fragile, irreplaceable home. There has been said that astronomy is a humbling and character-building experience. There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world. Everything we've ever done, everything we've ever cared about, all of it happened on that tiny pixel, that pale blue dot. Look at it again, really look at it. That's us, that's home, that's where we make our stand. In our obscurity and all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. Like it or not, right now, Earth is where we make our stand. It's the only world known so far to harbor life. There is nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. This is it. This is home. This pale blue dot suspended in a sunbeam, barely visible from the edge of our own solar system, completely invisible from any meaningful cosmic distance. This is the stage on which every human drama has played out. This is the only place we know where life exists, where consciousness has emerged, where the universe has become aware of itself. And it's our responsibility, yours and mine, everyone alive today and everyone who comes after us, to preserve it, to cherish it, to protect it from harm, whether that harm comes from outside, from asteroids or cosmic radiation, or from inside, from our own short-sightedness and greed and tribalism. The pale blue dot is humbling. But it's also inspiring, because if we're small, if we're insignificant from a cosmic perspective, then our conflicts and hatreds and divisions are even smaller, even more insignificant. They're not written into the nature of reality. They're choices we make and we can choose differently. We can choose to see ourselves as inhabitants of the same small world. We can choose to work together to preserve our home. We can choose to be worthy of this extraordinary planet, this oasis of life and consciousness in a vast cosmic desert. When I look at that pale blue dot, I see our future, not determined, not guaranteed, but possible. A future where we overcome our divisions and work together, where we spread beyond Earth and give ourselves a margin of safety, where we preserve the beauty and diversity of life on our home world, where we become worthy stewards of this precious pale blue dot. That future is possible, but it's not inevitable. It depends on choices we make, actions we take, priorities we set. It depends on whether we can look at that photograph, really look at it, understand what we're seeing, and let it change how we see ourselves and each other and our responsibilities to this small, fragile world. That dot is our home. Everyone we love lives there. Everyone who will ever live, if we don't destroy ourselves first, will live there. It's the only home we have, and it's our responsibility to preserve and cherish it for as long as we exist. And that's what I see when I look at the pale blue dot. I hope when you look at it now, you see it too.